Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 26th of July 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, Microsoft has confirmed a self-publishing system for the Xbox One, 16 more titles have been greenlit for Steam, and we'll have a roundup of indie bundles available to you at the moment. All this Neo Z Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. Microsoft has confirmed that they will be allowing self-publishing on the Xbox One. This is yet another U-turn after the company was heavily criticized by both independent developers and actual gamers themselves. As much as I'd like to give you a lot of information about what's going to be going on, there were a series of vague statements given by corporate VP Mark Whitten, and he had the following to say. Our vision is that every person can be a creator, that every Xbox One can be used for development, that every game and experience can take advantage of all the features of Xbox One and Xbox Live. This means self-publishing, this means connect the cloud achievements, this means great discoverability on Xbox Live, and we'll have more details on the program and the timeline at Gamescom at the end of August. This is of course a very specific U-turn because prior to this you basically needed a publisher to get on the service, which is something that Sony very frequently claimed they did not require. Okay, there's a couple of weird things about this statement that I want to know more about. Like, what is this idea that every Xbox One can be used for development? Up until this point, you have to get development kits to actually develop for these bloody things. And generally speaking, one of the reasons for that is that if you allowed that degree of freedom on the console, then you open it to all sorts of crazy stuff that clearly Microsoft do not want, up to and including the potential of piracy and homebrew, which they have done their very best to get rid of over the past 8 or so years. Now, the question, I suppose, is this. How on earth is that going to work? I mean, obviously, a development kit shouldn't be too different from the hardware. That we know for a fact. That would be bizarre if it was. But giving that amount of freedom to pretty much anybody, how is that going to work? Will there be a fee associated with it? Will there be some kind of hardware dongle? If it's just going to be a software update, then I would be very surprised, let me put it that way. It seems like you'd be giving far too much freedom to people. That's not Microsoft's style, frankly. And honestly, I don't entirely blame them for it, because if this kind of freedom allows for, say, piracy to occur as a result of some unforeseen way of unlocking certain parts of the system, then I think they would be in an awful lot of trouble. So I want to know more about that. Secondly, I want to know more about this discoverability thing, because I think that's currently the biggest problem. You can publish games on your own without a publisher right now on Xbox 360. You do it through the Xbox Live Indie section, and most of the games on there are unfortunately really bad. And to combine with that, all of the good ones, well, they're unfortunately buried under all of the trash. There are not all that many games on that service, and people generally don't develop for it because discoverability is a major problem. It's a similar issue with iOS, actually, that just being found. You know, making a good game and being found without Apple pointing to you as, hey, this is editor's pick of the week, is very, very difficult to do. And there are plenty of really good games on iOS that just flat out fail as a direct result of that. Xbox Live Indie has no curation whatsoever, meaning that you can pretty much shove anything up there, and as a direct result, there's a whole lot of rubbish. This is, of course, in stark contrast to something like Steam, which, in my opinion, overly curates the service through the use of Greenlight, and prior to that, was being super picky about games for no apparent reason, and refusing to tell people what the justification for rejecting a title was. I think you need to find a happy medium between those two things. You do need some level of curation, but you need to make sure it's hands-off enough not to be the personal opinion of just one guy that says, you know what, I don't like this style of game, so I think I'm going to reject you on that basis. Very difficult, you know, this is one of the real challenges that we're now coming to face. In these digital storefronts, there is no stock limit. Now, you can have as many games on the shelves as you want. The problem is, those shelves being infinite in size means it's harder to find the thing that you're looking for in the first place. It's a very difficult thing to do. So how exactly do you moderate that correctly? That's going to be a challenge for both Sony and Microsoft as far as I'm concerned. I think it's safe to say that it's good that they're allowing self-publishing. Publishers are not necessarily relevant anymore to certain kinds of games, particularly small-scale titles. That you don't need a publisher for that stuff. It doesn't actually give you any benefit, more often than not, exactly the opposite. So forcing a company to go down the publishing route when it might not suit their title and their particular style is unreasonable. considering that these consoles will be more digital reliant than ever, we will be seeing an awful lot more indie titles, we will be seeing an awful lot more smaller scale games actually hit it big on these systems. But the question is, how well will that be supported? Will it be a case of, say, with Xbox 360, that the only way you sell well as an independent game on that system is if you're part of the Summer of Arcade? Is that how it's going to be? Hopefully not, because that's very, very picky. I mean, there are loads of great games on Xbox Live, and only a fraction of them are highly successful because they end up getting cherry-picked by Microsoft. We need another way around that. And if I'm entirely frank about it, I just don't have an answer to that at this point. I don't know of a way to make that happen. It's a difficulty that we're going to have to deal with as it comes. Steam's solution certainly didn't work out well, so I think that Microsoft has to have a look at that and figure out where Valve went wrong and how exactly to rectify that. Maybe they can use some kind of public system. Maybe they can crowdsource some of it, but I think it needs an awful lot more oversight. Steam has released a list of 16 more games that have gone through the Greenlight system and will be available for sale once, of course, they are complete. There are a number of different titles, which also include 2 software titles, Dexter Audio Editor and Graphic Editor Open Canvas, and we will be seeing titles by the name of A Hat in Time, Among the Sleep, Broforce, Centration, Chasm, Darkwood, Deadly Premonition, The Director's Cut, Dive Kick, Operation Black Mesa, Project Awakened, Recruits, Recoil, Shelter, and Starmaid. Well, I'd like to pick a couple out of that just to have a look at. First, of course, Dive Kick. I'd like to give a big congratulations, by the way. I actually had word from Iron Galaxy that their biggest ever spike in votes actually did come directly from the guys on this channel. So, congratulations. You guys played a big role in getting this game onto PC. I'm very happy to see it getting on PC. It's going to be a lovely little introduction, I think. A lovely little deconstruction of fighting games that can be played by pretty much anybody. It's a nice little equalizer, I feel, taking away a lot of the mechanical complexity and bringing it down to strategy, prediction, and playing your opponent. I love it. I really, really do. It's a joke turned into a really interesting experiment, and it's actually a ton of fun to play. Okay, what else is on there? Broforce looking pretty interesting. I do need to check the alpha out of that at some point. It does seem like a rather amusing parody with some interesting mechanics and innovations, rather than just saying, hey, look at this, we're kind of like Contra, but there's in-jokes. No. I'm glad to see that that's a little bit more complex. A Hat in Time, after its successful Kickstarter, looking like very much a classic 3D collectathon with a nice style to it, so that one should work out fairly well. And Deadly Premonition, The Director's Cut. Why the hell did this even have to go through Greenlight? This is being put out by Rising Star Games that have a massive back catalog on 3DS, Wii, and a number of different other platforms. They're kind of a weird mixed publisher. They put out some pretty cool hardcore JRPG stuff. They put out games like Rune Factory, which is awesome. And then they put out stuff like Girls Makeover Kit. I don't even know, I guess Rising Star got to get paid. But it's interesting that they would have to take Deadly Premonition, a game that has actually had a lot of press behind it, and this weird cult following, and have to send it through Greenlight, rather than going directly onto the service. That's so strange. I don't really know what's going on with that. I think seeing a game like Deadly Premonition having to go through Greenlight is very much indicative of the problems that this system currently has. There's no way in a million years that should be happening. Aside from that, I would like to point out Recoil, which is very much a classic FPS with a lot of community support in mind. Reminds me a lot of a mod called Urban Terror for a game which you might know by the name of Quake 3. It's really quite nice, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one. And then we've got Project Awakened as well, which unfortunately failed its Kickstarter, but looks like they're going to be attempting to develop this thing anyway. Rather interesting take on superpowers and emergent supposed heroes. So hopefully that actually ends up getting finished. That's been struggling for a long time, but not too bad a list. Of course, conspicuous by its absence, and no, I'm not going to let this go, is Paranautical Activity. What the hell? Still not on the bloody service. It's almost like these guys are really trying to make an example of them. I'm not okay with that. I don't think you should be persecuting a two-man indie just because your rule set doesn't happen to be well written. And finally, let's have a look at some indie bundles, shall we? Everyone knows about the Humble Bundle, but they might not be aware of some of the lesser-known titles which can offer some rather nice deals. So, we'll kick it off with the Indie Gamer Chick Bundle. You can find that at indieroyale.com. It's named after indiegamerchick.com, by the way, if you wondered why that was. Actually has nothing to do with female protagonists whatsoever, but there you go. It contains Dead Pixels, Chester, Antipole, Lasercat, Smooth Operators, Call Center Chaos, Little Racers Street, Spy Leaks, Orbitron Revolution, and a couple of forthcoming mystery titles. It's a little bit of a weird mix, honestly. I can't legitimately recommend too many games from that. I thought Dead Pixels was fairly interesting and had some cool ideas, but it wasn't exactly an incredible title. Smooth Operators is surprisingly entertaining, but aside from that, it's a collection of titles that I think you should be looking at if you're interested in trying some new stuff that you're not really familiar with. It's very much a series of games that are out of your comfort zone. One thing I would say is that Orbitron Revolution supposedly is rather interesting if you're looking for a shmup, so I would maybe have a look at that. That's going to be on sale for the next 4 days. Okay, what else have we got? IndieGala.com's got the IndieGala Summer Tide, which contains an awful lot of games. As usual with IndieGala, they do a bunch of tiered stuff. So on Tier 1 at Pay What You Want, you get Minor Warfare, Doom and Destiny, and Honor Ken. So nothing particularly outstanding there. At Tier 2, you get Space Pirates and Zombies, the Exceed collection, at least 2 of the 3 games from that, and 2 Steam games that they haven't revealed yet. Tier 3 will get you the 3rd Exceed game, as well as Sacrabore Train Simulator 2012, and a couple of DLCs for that, as well as Painkiller Recurring Evil. Not really an incredible deal as far as I'm concerned, but it does contain Space Pirates and Zombies, which is an excellent game, and the Exceed games are very nice if you like the notion of bullet hells. I hate the notion of bullet hells, so I would never really play them, but they are fairly highly regarded. Sacrabore is not that great. It's an old RTS that was designed with a kind of cut-down competitive multiplayer mode that really wasn't all that interesting. And of course, well, Train Simulator, I'm not even going to make a comment on that. Painkiller Recurring Evil, for those who don't know, is dreadful, so don't even. But I think maybe it might be worth waiting to see what the other games are. Like, if they throw one more good game in there in the second week, then I'd probably recommend to pick it up just so you can get Space Pirates and Zombies, and then the rest of it is just an interesting distraction. Alright, and we also have Bundle Stars. This is actually really nice. This is the Bundle number 10 Superfly Indie, which contains a number of titles which very clearly are not indie whatsoever, but let's have a look at the list. So you got Disciples 3 Renaissance, you got Galaxy on Fire 2, Afterfall Insanity, which is dreadful by the way, Air Conflicts Pacific Carriers, Dungeons the Dark Lord, Cargo Commander, Xenoclash, that's 1, not 2, The Journey Down, Kung Fu Strike, and Weird Worlds Return to Infinite Space, and that's all for $5. That's actually ridiculous. That's a really, really good deal. Disciples 3 is not as good as Disciples 2. I'll be entirely frank about that. Not even close. But it's decent enough, especially considering the price. You'll have a good few hours of fun with it. It's unfortunately far more shallow than I would expect from a Disciples game. And Galaxy on Fire 2, reasonably fun, a conversion from smartphones actually, but much, much better on PC. It is a space combat and trading game, not particularly complex. I mean, compare this to X and it's not even close, but it's actually pretty fun. Air Conflicts Pacific Carriers is not bad. It's better now that it's been patched. It didn't really start off all that well. It's a reasonably good arcade flight sim, so that's not too shabby. Dungeons, kind of a mixed bag really on that one. You'd think it would be Dungeon Keeper, but it's actually this kind of weird theme park-esque game with a bit of odd tower defense stuff thrown into it. It's got some really weird systems, let me just put it that way. But, you know, if you can get into it, it's a reasonably good time. Cargo Commando, I'd highly recommend that. Really nice, procedurally generated kind of platformy action game. That's cool. The original Xenoclash, of course, modify the .ini files to increase the FOV, and it's a really nice 2 to 3 hour kind of brawler experience from a first-person. Journey Down is a fairly recent indie adventure game release, very much a rather creepy point-and-click. That's actually kind of neat, and I'm surprised to see that on that deal. It's a pretty good game as far as I'm concerned. Reminds me a little bit of Grim Fandango, especially in art style, and it's got a very interesting set of characters and a rather cool aesthetic design, so it's probably one of the standouts of the bundle alongside Kung Fu Strike, which was surprisingly good. I did not expect that to be a good game, but it's actually a rock-hard kung fu brawler, and it's really damn fun to play. And then Weird Worlds Return to Infinite Space, which is a nice little time waster whereby you go into randomly generated universes and you try and survive as long as possible, which generally results in you dying in about 5 minutes. But yeah, that's probably the best bundle that we currently have on offer right now, so I'd be looking towards bundlestars.com for that particular set of games. Alright folks, that is me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch. Before I go, I would like to give you the OC Remix track of the day. Continuing on with our chilled out laid back lounge theme, we've got a track by DJ Pretzel. It goes by the name of Super Mario Bros. Jazz Plumber Trio. It is exactly what you would expect. One of the earlier tracks from OC Remix, still holds up very well indeed to this day. So enjoy the smooth cuts of DJ Pretzel. I'll see you next time.